to be part of such an event. That is really great to me, as that sort of event makes me the part of getting the essence beyond the horizons you could probably get in a mere context. But I'll be more concrete beyond the theme and topic further. So mainly I do counterculture, as I mentioned, philosophy, or I prefer the naming of experimental philosophy, of a radical, in Russian it is avtorство. I like the melody of the word in it, but in English it's just the radical, maybe self-expression. As I see the main source of getting the meaning beyond the sources we could probably get, because the producing mode is alternative aside and apart from all the varieties we actually restate. And my main topic I want to introduce now is dedicated to this element. So my topic naming sounds like hiding the moment through anti-realism, alternative phenomenon formation. Pretty complex, very vague and unsure, and like all my first introducing stuff is, because therefore I can reframe the models maybe of reacting towards the meaning. So all my presentations are in some way bigger explanation of what was mentioned and introduced in the very beginning of its naming. So I'll start. As the second day, that is today, by the way, is devoted to the counterculture, there is a stabilized issue that I'm facing as person who is living under this name. It can be formed and expressed in a way of a questioning, like what counterculture we're talking about if there is no such a thing as very constructive contrast just for us and for today, which is very reasonable. But this reasonable stuff isn't enough for getting the essence of why the forms actually become alive for us. What I'm talking about. I'll try to rectify this problem just in front of you. The counterculture is actually seen as taken as a very stable, even I'd say concrete way to introducing the world around through certain operation that is set as a linear and main phenomenon. But as for me, this exact material is important and maybe more complex than it seems, for the reason we get the constructive world not through the given experience. Oh, that's the cat. I cannot shut him up, so hello. Anyway, counterculture noise. Not a background, but still a live one. So the counterculture as a thing is ruined in a socialized phenomenon, but it's even more alive and fulfilled if we're the taking into in advantage, I say, that the counterculture is the way we reframe the activities. So that's a certain operation of saving the the material besides the actual meaning and interaction in this actual meaning. Long story short, the main problem of counterculture is its sociological emptiness, but also its major advantage, I guess, is considered to be the source of how we operate the world besides its own mm, given ability, as we do form some constructions, actually, and spheres that we interact with. And the counterculture as a sphere makes the combinations of how we reframe maybe and just rewrite and even just simply increase the potential of being elements in something very stabilized as a given ability to perceive world is taken. So that's my main frame. I'll be talking in and talking from, I guess. That counterculture is a is a frame of how we introduce the varieties for getting new way to stabilize ourselves in very given abilities. I'll try to elaborate on it a bit more, maybe in questions as well. So the issue that is introduced in the counterculture concept is the role is the modality of vision that we're getting through being in this pure action. By this I mean that another hello, like reintroducing my volume 2 during my speech. So like counterculture is a certain vision that is got through our main approach, and this connection and supportive maybe linear linear sphere we get when we just by naming it is certain combinations of abilities we save for stabilized link to the world. Uh, and I'm talking about holistic nature of perceiving the reality and getting the way we connect to it, towards it, for maybe reforming it besides uh, the spreaded formations. For example, when we're talking about reality and its contrast nature and its contrast performance source, we're talking about the holistic something and the way we connect towards it. And the counterculture actually saves and even for me, forces the idea that the contrast is the only way we get the alternative, the way we maybe save and reflect the world in ourselves, its inner core, as a certain structure we're using is the way we get the essence besides the varieties and besides the interpretations and the limits we're becoming into just and we're digging into. It's better to say it, to put it this way. But when we reframe the counterculture problem, we are becoming even closer to the main topic I'm introducing today. That's what's the tiny start in a constructive modality in the world where the happening is too realistic for being broken. That's an interesting case. I'll try to spread on it a bit more. Mm, for me, if we're using the constructions beyond the stabilized meanings and stabilized maybe acting patterns, we we hide uh, the the reality for reflecting the pure moment in our own, mm, maybe contacting the visibility of reality. So when we use the counterculture in like an approach of the way we save the modalities for getting the world aside from actual contact, we are maybe getting the very core of the beginning of every maybe act, like and the operator act we probably and possibly can be in reunited materialistic performing. So the existence as a holistic construction becomes ruined because the ways we get it are no longer the only source of making the presence alive. What I'm trying to say is that the body of the main form we have in mind when we're talking about the world, existence, and so on is becoming very easily ruined when we do not try to save our own ability to be the part of a world through getting some spheres alive and through making them maybe compositional and structured. And mainly speaking, counterculture as a vague and even silly conception is a very helpful source for reframing the way we link to the moment besides the reality. As I've been thinking for a while, from aside from this topic, why do we see the moment in a very, I mean, the moment as a point in a timeline? Why do we see a moment as a very material, definite material type with its own refreshed links and combinations? Like we do have only one model of time and model of getting the start. Besides the actual maybe flows we get through realities can be really different from each other, and we know it as philosophers, performatives, and artists as well. So maybe the only way, as I figured out for myself, for using the ability besides this ability's limits is to state the role of mm, let me say getting the concrete in a new stabilized formation, where formation is no longer mm, the reason and maybe the goal of getting the reality reflected and replayed. Some potential of it. There are lots of potential points that's coming um, after that, but the main one is considered mm, to make the meta semantical revolution even closer to us. If we contacting to the reality not for getting the essence in a compository or even linking way. In this way, sorry if you're being tautological. I guess it's okay if you are very stressed in a good way for making your point not very clear maybe enough, but expressive enough for form an alternative source of community in further communication besides the reacted abilities. So yeah, back to the final topic. Mm, the new ways we get the reality in different sources of revolutionary action and behavior is to form such a behavior that is not getting the reality, but maybe using its points because of mm, reunited abilities we state as resultatives in our own being. The political speech is very popular nowadays in a lot of philosophical intentions, and I'll not be the exception. I'll try to cover it a bit more too, but from a mystical and counterculture position point of view, as I always do. Maybe we could demolish the limits of the way we get the constructions when the start isn't the same operation act. So we can start, and probably this event is the way to start it from another start. I'll put it this way: it's concretely enough for reintroducing the new communicational aspects. I guess that's it. I'll be happy to hear any questions if you have some.